80% don't sell right now. 20% do. So you want to be part of that exclusive 20%. Like you want to be able to sell that transferable asset and cash out.
Now we playing it smart, put the system in position, took the grind out the heart, got the team on a vision, every role playing part. Ain't no job, it's a business, that's the real boss art. We the 2 Exit Podcast.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Sam Mitchell. Welcome to Freedom to Exit. We're here, consultants for Exit Factor North here in Atlanta, Georgia. Here's our president to my right, Josiah Wiley. Also, we have Nadia Adelaide over here, Maurice Grant to my left. We have Flora Williams, and joining us is David Ingram from Five Eye. Your name of your company is
Five Eye Enterprises.
Enterprise, and you are a private equity.
That's correct.
So you are the person that our clients come to for money.
I would hope so.
Yeah. David, how long have you been in that space? And let's talk about what you do, why it's so important for people like you in this space, for small business owners and business owners to have access to capital when they can't go to the traditional way like banks.
Right. Well, I've been doing this for 20 years now, all out of Atlanta, Georgia. I focus on what we refer to as lower middle market companies. So these are the smaller, typically founder-owned and operated companies. The reason it's important for business owners like that to come to someone like me is the fact that, look, they have built something over the course of their careers, maybe 20, 30 years. Many times the next generation doesn't want to take over the business anymore. And so all of the personal wealth of the founder owner is wrapped up in their business.
Now, is it true that if you're a business owner, like 80% of their equity is tied up in the value of that company? Because if you look at a traditional non-business owner, let's say, a lot of their money is tied up in 401k plans, mutual funds, stock, as well as their property, residential property, or other assets. Or if you're a business owner, and being from a private equity fund, when you look at these companies, like their revenue, 80% of their net worth is tied up in that company.
Yeah, my experience is actually higher than that. It's closer to 90%. Because they continue to have to fuel the business to support the growth. Yeah. And if you're not growing, you're dying. And so even minimal growth requires a reinvestment of kind of the profits coming out of the business. So business owners aren't able to diversify as easily as non-business owners, in my opinion.
Can we take a step back for a second? Can you define what private equity means? Because some people have, like, I know before I got into this space, I had a certain definition of private equity that was completely different once I got into the world of M&A. Right. So can you define what PE is for you? Right.
So, well, I'll start defining private equity and then explain kind of how I fit into the world of private equity. But private equity is really just a term used to talk about the aggregation of private capital from pension funds, from large banks, high net worth individuals, and then that money is aggregated for a management team or an investment team to go out and deploy that capital. So they are charged with investing in and buying operating companies. I operate as what's known as an independent sponsor. So I don't have a committed capital fund with me. I have relationships with other private equity firms that have committed capital funds. And that gives me the luxury of working with a business owner much longer and developing kind of the right fit. We were talking earlier before we went live about not every private equity firm is the right fit for every business. So if a company is looking at going the private equity route, it's important for the business owner to be doing just as much diligence on that private equity firm as the private equity firm is doing on the business.
And speaking of that, because I do know that there's a lot of different PE funds that focus specifically in different markets.
Right.
Like there's one here in town that we are familiar with that focuses on manufacturing, for example. Yes. Manufacturing businesses and operations. So for you and your business, what is your focus?
Right. So I'm not a generalist. Some private equity firms are generalists. I focus in 4 to 5 key areas. One is aerospace and defense. So it's very important to me supporting kind of the U.S. military and our allies and protecting our freedoms. So I spend a lot of time in aerospace and defense. I also do environmental services. This can be everything from wastewater cleanup to asbestos remediation. And I focus on niche manufacturing. So this is less the commodity-like manufacturers and more the short-run production manufacturing shops. And then the construction and deconstruction trades, demolition, electrical
the fun
contractor.
stuff. Get to blow things up.
Get to blow things up.
So
tear it down.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually in my history I've got to do some of that stuff. That it's a lot of fun.
Yep.
But the next question I have for you, I think there's a lot of misconceptions by business owners of what private equity means. But private equity is a great opportunity for a lot of businesses to find partners that can bring capital for them, right? And one of the ways that one of the strategies that it can work is that, let's say your business is not doing $1 million of profit, right? Maybe you're less than $1 million, but if there's another business out there that is doing not $1 million as well, but you put those two businesses together, even if they're not exactly in the same, market.
Right.
But when you collectively put them together in value, they're over that threshold for private equity, then it becomes a situation where it opens a lot of doors to more, capital. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, first, I think your initial point is spot on. And that is that, why would business owners look to private equity either to have diversify their personal balance sheet or to bring in an institutional capital partner to help support their growth? Because as an independent business, if you're a business owner and you're looking to grow either through acquisition or organically, many times you have to take on additional risk. You have to do personal guarantees for the working capital that you go out and get, or just opening another office now takes twice your time, okay? And what I do a lot is exactly what you just hit on. Many of the companies that I talk to are less than $1 million of net earnings, but they're primed for growth, meaning they've got a good customer base, they've got a decent management team, the owner is looking to diversify his or her personal balance sheet, and so we come in and put them with similar companies that are culturally a good fit for them, and we spend a lot of time working with the companies to make sure we do have a good culture fit. I'll give you just one quick example. I'm working on a landscape business strategy right now where we're serving the ultra high net worth individuals. These are, $100 million plus individuals, and it's their landscape management. I've got one company that I have under LOI, but they are $500,000 in net earnings. So I just went to Connecticut to meet with 4 more. They're all similar. They don't compete as much. So you've got a lot of organic growth there and acquisitive growth opportunities.
So collectively, putting those businesses together then would open the door to the larger capital, market.
That's right. There are very few private equity funds that are looking solely for companies with $500,000 or less in earnings. So you've got to do something, and I've done this successfully since 2018 with a number of different platforms where you put companies together. And look, there's an integration risk you've got to account for. But if it's done correctly, 2 + 2 really should equal 5.
Makes sense. And just, how did you get into this space? Like what, tell us a little bit more about your background and what brought you to the point where you started to get into this business.
Well, I come from a very entrepreneurial family. I was selling real estate before I left college, sold cars for a living for a while, all part of the family business, if you will. But decided I liked business and I liked family. I just didn't like them together. So
makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah, it does. I went back to law school, practiced for a number of years, but my plan was always to get into private equity. So I went the business route and used my law degree more as a business degree than anything else. But I just have enjoyed helping owners figure out what they need to do to be successful. And the beauty of not being a committed capital fund is I don't have pressure to deploy capital.
And you're also not restricted to, specific things. Like you can get into a lot of different things that way.
Exactly. You're right. I'm not. So what happens with private equity funds, just so people know, is the private equity firm will raise capital. They have a certain time period to deploy that capital, so they're under pressure to deploy that capital. And once deployed, they're under pressure to return that capital. And so a lot of times you'll have an artificial need to exit a business. Let's say you're in the middle of a potential growth curve, yet the private equity firm has to have a liquidity event to satisfy their terms of their private equity fund. And so really being able to go out to multiple private equity funds is a benefit to the owner, because now they're not under the pressure to have one size fits all private equity.
Makes sense. And let's just give everybody an example. Let's say you have $1 million.
Yep.
Right. A private equity group comes in, and typically they would say, "Hey, we're going to make our initial investment into that for about what, like 60% of the value or something like that."
It typically, we like to see 60 to 80% cash out and 20% to 40% rollover from the owner.
So what exactly does that look like? So that would mean that percentage would go to the owner up front, right? And then that 20 to 40% rollover would then be owner's equity that would carry over for the next 3-4 years, depending on what firm it is. They have different time frames, right? And then sometimes, right, please let us know, like, also there's an expectation that the owner carry a note. Can you tell us a little bit about how that all works?
Yeah, so happy to. First, I want to clarify that the rollover equity component. Let's say we're doing the $1 million purchase price example, and we want the owner to roll over 20%. Well, that's not $200,000. It's 20% of the post-closing equity, and because we're using leverage to affect the transaction, it's much less. So to own 20% of the company post-closing may only be $75,000 to $100,000. Okay, so I want to make that point clear. The second part of your question is really around what we call the proverbial second bite at the apple, right? So this rollover equity from the owner is an investment in their business, and when we go to exit the second time in 3 to 5 years, which is the typical, sometimes it's 7, but typically we target 3 to 5 years, the owner is going to get a return on that rollover equity as well.
Right.
And what we like to see is the owner staying involved in the business. So maybe the owner is not quite ready for retirement. They can see it from where they sit, but not quite ready to retire. But we want, call it skin in the game, if you will. And that rollover equity represents skin in the game for the owner. We don't typically do both rollover equity and seller note. So it's really just one or the other.
I got you.
To show that the owner really has some skin in the game.
Now, Floyd, I'm interested to hear some of your thoughts with all of your experience in the mortgage business and also with the Small Business Administration on how this private equity works for business owners. What are your thoughts on the private equity, the capitalization, the capital funds, and how that all works?
Well, I think there's different iterations of how private equity can work. Some of the small business owners have maybe have they're a bit timid and have some fears around private equity because they might have heard of horror stories about our earnouts and holdbacks. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I can. I tend to shy away from earnouts.
Okay.
I don't think it's...
So you don't structure deals with a lot of earnouts?
No, I do not.
And Coach, it's interesting because I think, and you tell me what you think as well, but I think a lot of people get a negative view of private equity in their mind because they think, every private equity deal
is the same,
has earnouts. That's not necessarily the case.
Right.
So,
for me, there's a couple different points to be made. if you're being acquired by in a private equity setting, and let's say there are other companies that are being put together with your company, and there's an earnout, being able to divide and keep separate kind of what were your earnings post-closing versus what the consolidated earnings post-closing are is very, very difficult. And, the 5I is actually a series of alliterated words. The first one is integrity.
Okay.
And, I don't want to be dismissive or derogatory towards private equity, but as a whole, it has a bad reputation because of the fact that earnout seems to be one of these areas where, less than ethical private equity firms cannot pay out to the former owners what they should.
It's kind of like, I think a lot of people see that as being set up to fail. Right. Like you bought my company and you told me that I can make this additional fund if I hit these specific metrics. But, if it's done incorrectly or too aggressively, you're pretty much establishing these earnouts at a point where they're just not achievable. Right. And that's, I think, where some of the negativity comes from.
And that's where most of the litigation in private equity comes from. As I mentioned earlier, I'm what I call a recovering attorney, but the most of the litigation around private equity comes from earnouts and either the disputes associated with buyers and sellers around earnouts.
Now, do they structure those earnouts to where they're obtainable? Sometimes, I know when I played basketball, we had certain incentives, and I used to tell my agent all the time, I can get you $1 million incentive. Yeah, but if I got to average 30 points a game, which I'm not going to average, it don't mean anything. Give me some incentive that, I may have to be a little bit better than what I was, but they are attainable. Do a lot of PEs make those earnouts really, really hard to reach those things, to achieve those things?
I think that if they had their preference, they would. But it's very important for sellers to have good advisors on their side. A lot of deals that I do are what are known as proprietary deals, which is a term of art within the PE community. It basically means that there's no investment banker or sophisticated advisor representing the buyer. I'm literally cold calling business owners and getting those companies under letter of intent. Even when I do that, I make sure that they get an advisor on their side, an attorney or another investment banker or business broker that's familiar with how this works, so they don't get in a situation where they're signing up for an earnout that's not achievable.
Right. It's good.
Throwing exit factor up on the screen.
That's why we're here.
Commercial.
Thank you, man. Do you guys provide capital for startups, or you have to be an established business?
Yeah, so my focus is exclusively on growth capital.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't do startups, I don't do venture, anything like that. It's all companies that are poised for growth. So that doesn't mean that they are high growth companies. Most of the time, founder-owned and operated companies have minimal growth. And it's not because they couldn't go out and achieve that growth. It's that the business owner has reached a certain point in their life where their lifestyle is set. Sometimes we call them lifestyle businesses, right?
Yep.
And growing at an exponential rate would require more time from them away from their families or their pursuits. And so it's okay to have limited growth, even flat growth. The idea is that you are poised for growth.
In an exit factor, we actually classified, there's two types of owners, right? There's the owner that is running their business to support their lifestyle, usually owner-operated types of businesses, or a larger business where they are intentionally leaving themselves in the day-to-day operation, right, to support their lifestyle. And then on the other side, we classify owners as, growth owners that are managing and working to build equity and value and acceleration of profitability in their business. And we classify them into those two categories.
Right.
And more often than not, we run into a lot of business owners that are unintentionally in the lifestyle box.
Right.
They want to be in the value acceleration box, but they've not worked to work themselves out or position themselves out of the day-to-day. Because if they don't do that, they're not creating something of tangible value to be transferred.
Right.
Right. So they got to work themselves out of that position. And so they're building that tangible business with growth, an asset that can be transferred to somebody else.
Answer me this. Could you leave your business right now, turn off your phones, shut your laptops, not respond to any emails, phone calls, text messages, and it still be running like a well-oiled machine? If that's not you, then you need to visit our website, planthatexit.com. Like this video, subscribe, comment for more topics that you want to hear us talk about. And we'll see you guys in the next video.
I got to ask you this. In our business, when we sit down with owners, and we call it exit factor, what we're basically doing is preparing them to set their business up to sell one day. How often when you meet with clients and you go to doing the due diligence, looking at the books, looking at the numbers, and what you realize that they don't understand that their business is not what they think it is, because what made you successful as an independent operator, wearing all those hats, doing all those things, don't necessarily make it attractive for you to get capital to grow, because you're looking at all this stuff. So what are those conversations like when you have an owner and he's got a good business, but he's doing all this stuff, and you're sitting there and he think he has this great business, you're saying, yeah, the business is good, but you're doing a little bit too much.
Yes.
How do you have that conversation?
Well, it's a pretty frank conversation, and it happens a lot. As a matter of fact, I have a demolition business in South Carolina, and we acquired that business, and the owner at the time did everything.
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't you if you were in the demolition business? I would do it all myself
fun,
too.
dog.
That sounds
Breaking and tearing up stuff.
The business of the business is not as much fun as it sounds.
Probably not. Yeah.
Running the excavator, that's fun.
Yeah.
Running dispatch, not so much fun.
Right.
But one of the things that we have to do is you come in and you look, and if we have to add cost to the business so that it can grow, that's only going to hurt their valuation.
Yeah.
So let's say they're doing $500,000 of net income, but it's really one person doing multiple functions. And we know we have to make investments in those areas to support the growth, because one person can't do all that and continue to grow the business. So that actually hurts them in the long run. The second piece is that, we as investors don't want to have to make those new investments on the day we close. We would like to see an owner making those investments along the way so that we can hit the ground running, and they already have that second bench, if you will, in terms of people to manage the business.
It's great to hear you say that, because that is what I am talking to clients about every day, right? That's what we talked about to business owners all the time, and that is what you're just talking about. In order to make your business transfer ready, an asset that's transferable to the next group, it needs to be set up in a way where everything is ready to go. Like you have all the right people in the right places. The owner is not in the day-to-day operation centric. It's not completely dependent on them, right? And you have something that can be sold, and then that next owner can come in and take that for, continue to have that growth acceleration in the business, right?
Right.
And Floyd, I mean, how many times have we had that conversation in the last 3 or 4 months? It's
times.
like, just like you, we've seen that quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's really important in what you guys are doing, because a lot of times owners get caught up in just the day-to-day business,
Yes.
right? The phone rings, they're they're responding to customers.
Yep.
But the types of work that they're doing or the revenue they get is also important. I'm putting together some electrical contractors right now in Connecticut. And the two companies, so we're doing the exact same thing. Neither one is large enough on their own, so we're putting them together and going to market. They're both great companies on the project side of the business, but there's all these maintenance contracts that they could have been capturing along the way, and that quote-unquote recurring revenue is more value. Every dollar of recurring revenue is more valuable than every dollar of a project-based business. So it's important to help owners, get above the trees to see the horizon and what's really going on. To your point, right? Get the people in place that are doing the day-to-day operational stuff, so the owner of the business can be the true visionary.
Yep.
and drive the strategic effort.
Now you kind of just touched on it in a little bit, but can you point out some of the things that you see as actually like super viable from your PE side, and then things that you disqualify a business owner like off the rips? Like one of them you mentioned was like the business owner wearing every hat. That's automatically disqualification. So
Well,
what's some other ones
yeah.
that you disqualify, and then what's some ones that you like, oh, I like this?
For me, the business owner wearing multiple hats is not an automatic disqualifier. It will reduce the value of their business, and so long as it's something that the owner is willing to transfer. Many times, the owner started the business because either they're a technologist or they're a good salesperson,
Right.
and now all of a sudden they're into the business of the business, right? Personnel, HR, benefits, contracting, all these kinds of things that have kind of consumed their time. The things that are an absolute no in business are, for private equity, any type of fraud or anything like that's automatically going to be a disqualification. PE firms will routinely tell you, and I'll tell you it is the truth, that they're investing in people. They don't know how to run the business, right? They should be honest about that. And so they're really investing in a management team.
Right.
And team being the operative approach. It would be better to invest in a team than an individual, but an individual is not totally disqualifying. It's just going to reduce the value of their business.
Makes a lot of sense.
It does.
What's that process like when a client comes to you? What's the time it takes to go through the due diligence, to look at the books, look at
question.
the P&Ls, look at all the things they look, because a lot of people, they come to you for money. Do they have a misconception that this is going to take 2 or 3 weeks, or do they understand that the process of you guys doing your due diligence, and it may be some homework on their part, some things they need to clean up before you consider giving them that money? So what's that timeline like, and how much of an investment? I know you say you do investments in certain size companies.
Right.
How much are y'all willing to invest in a business?
Well, there's really no cap. I've got one now that we're doing for about $65 million. I'm working on another one that's close to $400 million,
Wow.
and I'm working on a couple.
I like your neighborhood.
In the $10 million range. Okay, so for me, because I'm an independent sponsor, I don't have the limitations, right? If I have a good opportunity, now I don't need to get outside my own wheelhouse either.
Now, hold on. Let's take a time out, and because right there, you said something profound, and that is, as long as I have a good sponsor. What do you mean by that? Because I know what you mean, but I don't know if our listeners know, or necessarily everybody knows what you mean by as long as I have a good sponsor.
Well, for me, it's I'm not sure what I said there, because if it was a good sponsor, I might have misspoke.
So what I'm talking about specifically, when you're going to buy a business, right? Typically, you want to have a good sponsor, so tell us a little bit about that.
Well, and that goes to the timing, right? So if someone is looking to sell their business and they come to me without any type of professional advice before they get to me, they're typically looking at a 9 to 12 month process, and that's because they haven't prepared their financials in the way that private equity looks at their financials. We deal on a trailing 12 months basis. So what we like to see are monthly financials for a historical period of 2 to 3 years, and we're doing analysis on a trailing 12-month basis, TTM basis, typically with EBITDA being which is why I like your sweatshirt, EBITDA being the key metric there for what we're trying to accomplish. Because it takes about 6 months for the owner to get those financial statements, and it's really financial diligence at this point. Yes, you're going to talk about what their business is and who they are as the owner-operator, but at the initial stages, your filters are really around financial metrics. And the owner, if they're looking to sell their business, they really don't want to bring their internal accountant into the discussions, right? Because we try and keep this very private until a transaction happens. But let's assume that they do have a good financial advisor that's helped them prepare their business for the process. Then you're talking about 120 days. So it takes about 30 days to get to a letter of intent. The letter of intent is what triggers exclusivity and starts the ringing of the cash register from a buyer's perspective.
Now, wait, did you hear the change in the timeline?
Yeah.
What was that?
That's us, isn't it?
That change in the timeline was significantly shorter if they've done the right planning and they've had the right advisor in place.
That's one thing I want to talk about too. You know, a lot of business owners that I've talked to who have worked with PE firms, not all of them, but they talk about the emotional drain process of 9 months of going through due diligence.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? How do you keep that client motivated and energized about the whole transition period?
Well, it's called deal fatigue, and it is real.
Yeah.
Wow.
And, you know, again, I can't stress enough, having a professional advisor on the sell side
Yeah.
that has prepared the owner
Back to us.
with what the process is, right? It's not easy. It's a second job for the owner because there are questions, and then there are questions on the answers to those questions,
That's right.
and so on and so forth. And the question will get asked many different times, many different ways, and it's a very frustrating process for owners. So it is.
Here's an example for you. I mean, we talked about it on our most recently released episode, and that was we had a business that basically sold in 30 days. And the reason why it sold in 30 days is because they went through a strategic exit planning with an advisor ahead of time for like 6 months. And so they went through the program 6 months, and then 30 days later, they were done.
Yeah.
So they were done with the whole process in 7 months. So, you know, that's what we do is we work with business owners to help them position the business at a point where it's transferable ready, right? It's ready to be transferred to that next ownership group. And it saves them a tremendous amount of time if they bring in that right person. And frustration, because like you said, it helps them get all their answers.
Right.
You know, questions all their answers. You know, answer all their questions. Or it helps them understand the process, and it expedites the whole process along. When the advisor already knows you need 3 previous years of financials and clean books and trailing 12 months, right? So if that's already prepared ahead of time to provide that over to the next ownership group that's buying, it just expedites it that much faster.
Right.
David, how many deals that you look at in a year, and then how many deals do you actually do? Because we hear, you know, I talk to different PE people, and they may look at hundreds of deals, but they may only do 2 or 3 a year, 3 or 4 a year.
Right.
How many do you look at, and then how many do you actually do, and then what jumps off the page when you're looking at those P&Ls and you're looking at EBITDA and all that stuff? What jumps off the page for you when you're looking at a business like, wow, I want to get involved?
Right. Well, let me just say, you know, private equity in general, they're looking at a number of deals, as you said, each and every year. They're only going to choose a fraction. Every PE firm has their own filters, right? Could be geography, could be industry, could be EBITDA. For me, I'm looking at about 20 to 25 deals a year, and I'm doing about 1 to 2.
1 to 2.
Wow.
So it's, but you know, my approach is a little bit different. I develop a strategy of what I want to do, and then I go and find the companies that I want to talk to.
Great.
And so it's more like I go back to this proprietary deal flow, whereas I'm not getting most of my opportunities are not coming from investment bankers or advisors. Most of my opportunities are me cold calling an owner and you know, getting them interested in diversifying their personal balance sheet.
So what's that conversation like? To pick up the phone, call the business. Hi, I'm David Ingram. Boom. How do you keep them hooked?
That's honest. Look, I'm David Ingram. I'm a private equity guy from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm doing a deal where I'm putting companies like yours together. I'd love to just sit down, buy you a cup of coffee, and have a conversation. I don't send text messages. I don't send emails. I either walk into their shop, having done my research ahead of time, and meet them, or I'm calling them and having a phone call with them, and then I fly. I flew to Connecticut for a week to sit down with 4 business owners that I'd never met before, and the only thing that we were going to do is have a cup of coffee and talk about business.
So when you do that, when you do your research and you target these these companies and you make that call, you already have an idea based on the research you've done that this is a company that you would like to look at.
Oh, yes. Definitely do the research ahead of time.
Wow. That's good stuff.
Cool.
So the other 22, 23, what you do with them?
The ones that you don't.
The due deals that you don't
work
do.
with.
Yeah.
Do you pass them on to other
You know, we
PEs? or you
gotta,
just-
If
we
I
gotta
can,
build
if
a great relationship here, man. You could just pass them on to us.
Well,
We
you know what
can
you can
just
do? Pass it
drop
back.
by and
Already.
we send them right
Pass it
back
back.
to you.
right down the hall. As a matter of fact,
in the block.
he's next door to you.
I'm one
Be
door
happy
over.
to make some introductions.
Yeah, we'll send them back to you, Dave.
I just want to point out, Floyd, that he prefers phone calls over email.
He's like older people.
That's right. Well, I'm not afraid to have a conversation.
Oh, no, I don't
so-
use emails for that.
What's one of the most unorthodox or strangest businesses that you've helped sell,
Let's see.
or experiences that you've had?
Well, one that we did in 2013 is an environmental services company, but what they did was they dealt with unexploded ordnances. So they worked with the military and police academies, both for live and non-live bomb fields and firing ranges. So what are known as UXO technicians, unexploded ordnance technicians, they sift around dirt on their bellies. They'll find an ordnance. They don't know whether it's live or inert, and they've got to make a determination. And then if it is, then they'll either what's known as BIP, blast in place, or they'll take it to a special area to explode it. Really kind of
You know what's funny? You all don't know this about me, but I actually had unexploded ordnance training.
Did you really?
And what they teach you is not to hit it with a hammer.
Really, I'm about to say no, you know where.
To get on the radio and call those guys, to have
whole
them come
training.
over and have them hit it with a hammer.
It is amazing what those guys do. And
Yes.
it actually was our lowest workers' comp rate of any business we'd ever done because there's zero accidents. They're like a wolf
Really?
pack. They're self-regulating. If you drink too much and you're shaky on the job, your teammates will make sure that you're
Absolutely.
off the
I mean,
job.
it's life and death, man. You got to be on top of your game,
That's
right?
right.
So,
Wow. But David, look, man, we appreciate you sitting here joining us right here, having an opportunity to talk to you about what you do, the type of deals you look at. Man, it's just amazing. It's amazing that we're here. Like Josiah said, we're one door down from you. We're all kind of in that same space, indirectly a little bit, but it's just amazing to me. All these companies out there not really understand. It's amazing to me that you got all these businesses, but you don't have a lot of great business people. And that's the thing that's amazing to me. And I say that because in our business, 80% of the businesses, they don't have an exit strategy.
Right.
They just either die or just close the door or just, to Floyd point, just walk away. They just get tired.
Yeah,
Well,
retired.
it's they call it the golden age of private equity right now because you have all
That's
the
right.
baby boomers
Yes.
That's right.
that are reaching retirement age.
That is
Kids don't want to step in and take over the business anymore, and they're left with no exit strategy or succession plan. I met with a landscaper, like I said last week, and he had no plan whatsoever. And I happened to call him. He's like, "Great! I mean, I'm actually going to be able to get a few $1 million from my business," where really he was left with just letting it wind down.
Let it wind down. Yeah.
Wow.
it's amazing. Yeah, because like you said, 80% don't sell right now. 20% do. So you want to be part of that exclusive 20%. Like you want to be able to sell that transferable asset and cash out because, like we talked about earlier in the podcast today, 90% of their net worth is tied up into that value of that business. If you can't sell it, then you're only left with 20% of your net worth, right? So you need to find that exit strategy to get out of that business.
Well, I would it's a little more draconian than that because if you get hit by the proverbial bus,
Right.
your family is now left with nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we call that the 5 Ds,
Five
right?
Ds, yeah.
Because your business ultimately won't sell because of what we say:
Divorce.
death,
Divorce.
divorce, disability, disagreements, and
Disease.
so those 5 things can surprise you out of the blue. So if you don't have that strategy or exit plan in place, you lose 90% of your net worth.
Right.
Yeah. It's part of strategic
David,
plan.
again, thank you for joining us
Thank
on
you.
Freedom to Exit. David Ingram, owner of Five Eye Enterprise, a private equity firm. David, you're right down the hall from us. We're looking forward to Maurice's point of hopefully you can slide a little bit of that business over to us.
And we can slide a little bit your direction.
We can slide a little bit your way, but
I like the slide.
there's a dance called electrified.
Hey, Nadia, we got to do a slide TikTok.
We're
We're going to call it the exit slide.
You don't want me sliding.
Coach too cool to slide. It's too cool. But
too cool.
guys, thank you for tuning in for a show. Again, we're here to provide information, strategies, and for when that time comes for you to exit your business, and it's gonna come, willingly or not. Sit down with us, sit down with David. Let us help you put together a plan so that not only can you exit, but you can exit your business and it can be more profitable and you can sail away into your golden years without a care, because that's what we're here for. Exit Factor North, Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you for tuning in. We will talk to you again. I'll see you again.
Bye.
next
$14
week.
trillion of wealth transfer.
14 trillion.
That.
Hey guys, most people start their businesses because they have a vision for a lifestyle sometime in the future, to be able to have that business create that lifestyle for them so they can exit not on someone else's terms, but on their own terms. So you can do that now. I want you to go to our site, Plan That Exit, to do an assessment of what your business is worth. Because when we know what your valuation is, we can actually help you get that valuation even multiple times higher than what it is today.